Election Media Centre opened in Port Moresby. Chief Ombudsman says vote for integrity and accountability. And UPNG Academic says not enough talk on independent commission against corruption.
This is National MTV News with Helen Sayer.
Good evening and thank you for joining me for Friday's news. The Media Centre for the 2017 national election was officially opened today by Electoral Commissioner Patilius Gamato. The centre will function as an international hub for media throughout the polling and counting period. Eric Harupma with this report.
Located at the electoral headquarters in Port Moresby, the centre will function as an information hub for accredited journalists throughout the polling and counting period. It will be operational from June 24th when the polling begins until polling ends on 25th July. Electoral Commissioner Patilius Gamato says it is the main instrument for the PNG to communicate and share election-related information and counting results.
In the past, we used to use just the forms, texting or faxing from provinces to come in. But this time, with the establishment of Media Centre, and especially the publication of result, it will now come in a high-tech manner. At the provincial level, we hope that they can use tablets and transfer and transmit information or the results through.
Gamato says all information and results available at the centre will be verified, cleared and validated by the relevant branches of the PNG. During polling, the centre will open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and as soon as the counting starts, working hours will be extended from 7 a.m. till midnight. The centre will monitor online progressive polling statistics and regularly updated results. Eric Harupma, National MTV News.
Electoral Commissioner Patilius Gamato is satisfied with the preparations by Highlands provinces for polling. After completing the Highlands leg of the trip by the Interdepartmental Election Committee, Gamato says reports received from electoral officers are positive and polling will take place as scheduled. The IDEC team completed its visit to the Highlands yesterday in Goroka.
Speaking to MTV News today in Goroka, Mr. Gamato says the visit by the IDEC team to the 5 islands provinces has seen positive feedback. He says the 2017 national elections is reaching its peak with polling only a few days away.
My general impression is that provinces are ready, especially the islands. The idea is to enforce them and encourage them to be strong and vigilant in conducting the election. We know in the past there's been past incidents of violence, threats and intimidation.
The IDEC team began the visit in Hela on Monday before proceeding to Southern Highlands, Enga, Western Islands, Jiwaka, Simbu and Eastern Highlands. The meet was primarily for the IDEC team and provincial election officials to iron out challenges in carrying out the elections from polling to counting and declaration.
We have also encouraged them to ensure that the process and the rule of law in terms of conducting election is done properly. And so I'm happy with the outcome.
Most discussed issues were security concerns, polling venues and appointment of returning officers, assistant returning officers and election managers. The IDEC team has maintained in all its visits that funding will not be an issue and security will be closely monitored.
So at the moment, there is enough money for him to spend, and there is enough money for him to. My job is to make sure that they're giving the money on a weekly basis.
Because I've decentralized the functions of elections to the division commanders, their responsibilities is to confine the police election operations within their own command.
The IDEC team is expected to visit the Highlands region again as polling begins. Jack Lepave Jr., National MTV News.
Papua New Guinea's corruption watchdog has encouraged Papua New Guinean voters to elect leaders of integrity and accountability. The Ombudsman Commission has also reminded the Electoral Commission that they have the responsibility of administering a fair election. The Chief Ombudsman says this is the only time people can exercise their power and they must do so without intimidation. Bethany Herman with this report.
The watchdog came out with a series of reminders for the candidates, the public and the Electoral Commission. For the people, it says, vote leaders who won't steal, cheat or lie.
We are vesting all this responsibility on the person we are voting. And that person, whoever it is going to be making all the decisions for the next 5 years.
Chief Ombudsman Michael Dick says leaders will be reminded of their responsibilities after they are elected.
And we have cases where one or two leaders have been removed from office.
He also called on the Electoral Commission to ensure the elections are fair.
Integrity of the election outcome depends so much on the integrity of the whole election process. If that is compromised, then the outcome would be questionable.
Papua New Guinea's elections happen every 5 years. The Ombudsman Commission is now taking steps to position itself after the people said they don't know much about them on MTV's Your Vote 2017 show last night.
Not very much about the role of the Ombudsman.
Michael Dick has made it his mission to change that during his time as the Chief Ombudsman. He says the people now have the opportunity to vote their leaders who become responsible for public funds. Whether good leaders or bad, they remain in power for the next 5 years. They will either be leaders with accountability and integrity or not at all. Voters face this reality. The Chief Ombudsman says the OC has carried out awareness to educate people. They've also frozen district and provincial funding accounts to stop money being misused in funding election campaigns of sitting MPs during the elections. Bethany Harriman, National MTV News.
Eastern Highlands Province is prepared to go to the polls. Yesterday, Electoral Commissioner Patiles Gamato cut ribbons to signify the distribution of polling materials for the 8 electorates. Preparations for counting at the National Institute of Sports has also begun.
Yesterday, Eastern Highlands electoral officials met with members of the Interdepartmental Election Committee for a briefing. From reports presented, Eastern Highlands has finalized all its details in conducting the polling to counting and are confident in delivering fair and safe elections. After the meet, members of the IDEC team joined locals in Goroka town to launch the distribution of polling materials in the province.
Today, we placate in this ribbon, the total Eastern Highlands, Team Eastern Highlands, and ready local election.
Hip hip! Hooray! Are we ready? Yes!
According to Electoral Commission officials, ballot boxes have arrived in the province with other non-sensitive items. Preparations for counting have also begun at the National Sporting Institute. Spray painting and distribution of ballot boxes is also taking place at NSI. Eastern Highlands has 8 electorates: Daulo, Goroka, Enganofi, Kainantu, Lufa, Obura, Waninara, Okapa and Ungaibena. According to local electoral officials, they are confident of delivering a successful polling, followed by counting before the declarations. Jack Lepave Jr., National MTV News.
An 800-man team comprising personnel from the RPNGC, PNGDF and CS officers are already in Madang to begin the security operations in the province. Provincial Police Commander Superintendent Jacob Singura warned the officers to remain neutral and provide security to the election officers. Singura told officers not to engage in any activities that may compromise their roles during the polling and counting period.
At 10 o'clock this morning, members of the RPNGC, PNG Defence Force and CS personnel held a parade to launch the start of the security operations in Madang. Provincial Police Commander Jacob Singura says the 800-man team is not adequate to provide maximum security, but all security forces will be deployed to each of the polling areas to make sure polling is done smoothly. More focus will also be put into hotspot areas. Security personnel will also be present in the other island communities.
Each polling team will have at least 2 police officers accompanying each polling team. So we will have every polling teams in all the districts will have police officers with the electoral team going out to conduct the elections. Yes.
Logistics is another concern for the team in Madang. The provincial police commander says they have already got 2 hired vehicles and are still waiting for another 2, but they will also be using the old police vehicles. Old firearms have been replaced with new ones and are ready for use starting today. There is also enough ammunition to counter any serious incidents that may arise.
As far as we are concerned, we have received our replacement firearms. All the old ones have been replaced. Also, we have enough stock of ammunition.
Meanwhile, all security personnel are warned to remain sober when out on duty. This is to make sure the general public feels safe.
I want every security force officers to be sober when they go out, during the polling period, to provide that environment for our people, so that they have confidence in our troops that we are here, we are serious in what we are doing, and so that people feel comfortable, safe to go about, casting their votes.
Martha Luis, National EMTV News, Madang.
Campaigning ends at midnight tonight all over the country, and polling teams will be deployed starting tomorrow for the voting process to begin. Moresby is one of the most difficult provinces to manage with logistics. Polling teams will be travelling via road, sea and air, a difficult and expensive process that takes a lot of coordination. Joining us live from Ley is Moresby's election manager Simon Soheke. Mr. Soheke, Moresby is a difficult province to manage in terms of logistics. Can you tell us how you are managing that part of your operations?
Moresby province, no doubt, is a very difficult province to manage in terms of logistics due to geography. But what we have done is we have planned in such a way that we will be recruiting manpower from locally. We will recruit manpower to cut down on the number of chopper trips which will be done, which I believe will cut down on the logistic cost. We will use some boats to travel by sea, but we have managed that very well by recruiting locally.
Okay, I understand the weather is a bit of a problem right now. Are you confident of meeting your deadlines?
Sure, I'm very confident at the moment. Yes, weather is unpredictable. In fact, we had a number of trips to be done today for insertion, but because of the weather, we had to refer them back. But we will try again tomorrow, and I'm very optimistic that we will be on target.
Okay. All right. Can you tell us about the polling and counting schedule for Moresby?
Polling schedule in Moresby is on target. We are polling tomorrow in most of the areas. Other areas will be polling on the 26th, which is Monday, and all areas in Ley City will be polling on the 29th, which is Thursday this month.
All right, thank you, Mr. Soheke. In more news after the break, a highway in trouble and final day of campaigning before polling begins. Stay with us for details. Welcome back. Deteriorating road sections along the Highlands Highway have prompted truck drivers to call for immediate intervention from the government. Drivers report that the number of trips taken by transport companies have been reduced as they try to manage the high cost of delivering essential cargo. Along the Custom Pass in the Eastern Highlands, the sharp turns have become hazardous for large trucks.
It's 6 a.m. at the summit of the Custom Pass on the border of the Eastern Highlands in Moresby. The first lot of trucks travel along a damaged section of the road carrying cargo bound for the Highlands. For many truck drivers, traveling along the Highlands Highway has become increasingly difficult and dangerous. Companies are losing money. High maintenance costs are forcing smaller companies to cut back on the number of trips. Paul Duppy, a truck driver for 12 years, says things aren't looking good for them.
Now, we talk about bus land, Loban, Tassel, to you, Lomburg Spring, close to, I think we miss another car, kind of sim. A little custom.
1 plus spring, my master.
1 plus spring, 1 plus little matching 900 kilo something. So, we got popular lip and Burg Stop and planted money lawn.
Unless you live in the highlands, you won't really appreciate the importance of this road. This highway literally keeps people alive. On this economic lifeline, food, fuel, even medicine is taken into the farthest reaches of the highlands. The dangers of traveling along the Highlands Highway have risen significantly over the last 10 years. The unrepaired potholes and the sections damaged by landslips increase the risk of accidents. And accidents trigger unwanted compensation demands by locals.
Time ibla golong gorokai come back and road him good luck from here golo gorokai. But beyond that golos chimbuna go na blagan go long enga golo tari and road him bagara bogara so.
Small companies are doing it tough. The wear and tear on their vehicles costs them up to 100,000 kina for servicing and parts, and many don't have the financial cushion. While large companies have the ability to absorb the high costs, they're also struggling to keep their trucks on the road. Compensation demands are higher if the trucking company is bigger.
It's killing us. It's killing us. We're not making big money so that we can benefit ourselves, but the small amount of money or cargo which we carry, they pay a little bit of money. But because of Highlands Highways, it's completely out of control, number one. Another one, portal from Ley all the way to Highlands provinces. Landslide is really affecting us.
Earlier this month in Simbu, the Prime Minister Peter O'Neill told a rally funding to fix the Highlands Highway has been sourced from the Asian Development Bank.
Lucky through 3 years, people are negotiate. One time ADB, same line only working this already come Lokembo. Now only approving 3 billion kina loan where you may fix him. Islands Highway Tasso. Islands Highway Tasso.
For now, travelers will have to deal with the high costs and the bad roads. Scott Waide, National EMTV News, Ley.
A UPNG Academic says there is not enough talk on the enactment of the Independent Commission Against Corruption by candidates. Patrick Kaiku says campaign promises that are being made only provide band-aid solutions instead of a more permanent solution.
About how political parties and candidates are
Mr. Kaiku has been part of the political science stream at the University of Papua New Guinea since 2012. He is disappointed with the lack of political discussions around the ICAC.
There has been commendable effort by certain political parties and candidates talking about reinstating the disbanded task force sweep. Task force sweep is unsustainable. It is not protected by legislation.
Kaiku said the lack of discussion is deafening, considering the level of discussion around it in the last election.
In 2012, this is nothing new. It was an election promise in 2012, this ICAC. And we are still campaigning, and there's nothing in the ruling party's agenda about anti-corruption policies.
His call joined those of civil society organizations who have also been calling for speedy progress on setting up the anti-corruption organization. In early 2014, the government was hopeful that the ICAC would be fully functioning by the end of 2015. Since then, there has been very little progress. An interim ICAC that was supposed to take over from the functions of the disbanded task force sweep is yet to be in place.
We're talking about all these important indicators of development, but the sad fact is, the sad reality is that corruption is a serious deterrent on investor confidence and citizens' confidence in the integrity of public office and the bureaucracy to deliver.
Sarah Aupong, National EMTV News.
Prime Minister Peter O'Neill concluded his final day of 2017 election campaigning by visiting remote villages in his district of Yalibupangia in Southern Highlands Province. This included a visit to the Yoko Koya Council Ward, where he opened the new Yoka Uro Elementary School. The Prime Minister told the people at the opening of the school that infrastructure will continue to be an important priority for his government. He said he already made great advances in delivering infrastructure and services to remote and rural areas in the first term in government, and these programs will be expanded. While critical of what he claims was the opposition's plans to cancel free education and healthcare, the Prime Minister congratulated candidates and members of the public who have taken part in elections in the right spirit. He also said that while there had been a few unfortunate incidents caused by what he described were failed and desperate leaders. Central Regional candidate Robert Agarobe ended his campaign yesterday in Tubusera village in the Central Province. Contesting for the second time, the aircraft maintenance engineer said Central Province deserves smart leaders to steer the province into the future. Central Province, despite its proximity to the nation's capital, remains one of the least developed provinces in the country, and Agarobe challenged the people of Central Province to vote wisely.
Having contested for NCD Regional in the 2012 elections, Robert Agarobe has again put up his hand to run for the Central Governor's post. Yesterday, he met with the community of Tubusera village to deliver his final words before people take to the polls. Widely known as one of the country's successful businessmen and owner of helicopter company Helifix, Agarobe believes Central Province can develop better if the right people are voted into parliament.
We've totally lost it. Central Province, we've totally lost it. There is no good management in Central Province. There is no good check and balance. There is no good accountability. That's why we are like this. This is the 21st century. We should have electricity in every village. We should have fresh drinking water in every village. We should have not only hospitals or aid posts or clinics, but we should have clinics and hospitals of very, very high standard.
Central Province remains one of the country's underdeveloped provinces. However, Agarobe believes if leaders have a smart vision, it can bring change, something that inspired him to take up politics.
Not free handout, not the DSIP and not the PSIP. What's going to change this province is a smart concept and a smart leader that can drive it. I don't really care about your skin color, whether you are green, yellow, white, blue or purple. You got to be fit and proper to work in that office.
He also called on the people of Central Province to unite, saying they cannot be spectators in their own land.
These days we have people going out there pushing for Papua, pushing Central for Central, Rigo for Rigo, Abau for Abau, Goilala for Goilala. You know, and I think that these type of people who speak and talk like this are cultists. They are not healthy for us. In this time of the world now, we can't speak like that. We are part of a beautiful country called Papua New Guinea. So we can't shy away. We can't shy away and we can't act like gellies and try to separate. We got to find our mark in Central Province and we got to make our mark in Central Province.
Agarobe is one of 27 candidates contesting the Central Regional seat. Meanwhile, polling for the Central Province starts tomorrow. Stanley Ove Jr., National EMTV News.
More last campaigning around the country before it ends at 12 midnight. About district candidates have concluded their rallies heading into polling. One Abau candidate, Sylvester Mera, campaigned on lack of education, health and road infrastructure.
Abau is not okay. Abau's infrastructure has decayed in the last 20 years. Our roads are in terrible conditions, particularly trunk roads. Roads from Morogwina to Kupiano. Today, you find many vehicles cannot travel on that road, except Land Cruisers or four-wheel vehicles. Many of our feeder roads and roads that cut through where people live have now grown shrubs and people don't use anymore. Instead, they carry their burdens and walk miles to receive any services, including including taking the produce to the markets. So Abau is in a very, very bad state.
Air Niugini Executive Club members travelling out of Lae can now enjoy the benefits of an improved Paradise Lounge, including free Wi-Fi and a conference room. Chief Executive Officer Simon Fu, when opening the lounge, recently said Air Niugini is on a planned customer care program. Lae Club Lounge is an important part of the program. Air Niugini has over 5,000 Executive Club members. So far, it has 9 Paradise Lounges in its domestic network, including Mount Hagen, Lae, Tokua, Medang, Kieta, Wewak, Goroka, Hoskins and Port Moresby, 2 of which are under construction. And now looking at our finance news, the kina closed unchanged at $0.3145 in the interbank market. At Bank South Pacific, your kina was buying $0.307 $0.4043 Australian dollars, $0.2722 euro and 33.85 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, gold and copper closed higher, while coffee and cocoa closed the day lower. Palm oil closed unchanged, while crude oil and copper closed the day higher. And on the stock market, the Dow Jones closed at 12.74 points lower, the ASX closed at 9.95 points higher, and the All Ordinaries closed at 12.33 points higher. Stories making headlines overseas when we return. Stay with us. Welcome back to the news. Turning overseas, around 200,000 people have packed the former school of the American student who returned home from North Korea in an unresponsive state. Questions still surround the death of Otto Warmbier, who left the U.S. 18 months ago as an ordinary student before becoming embroiled in a high-stakes diplomatic incident.
Tonight, a small town and an entire nation mourning Otto Warmbier. The 22-year-old's young friends carrying his casket, thousands paying their respects at his former high school. So many, some had to be turned away.
I think he was a gift to all of us. He was a one of a kind, but he inspired us all.
Items from Warmbier's trip to North Korea on display, including the jacket he wore when sentenced to hard labor, his father wearing that same jacket when Otto returned home.
I'm able to wear the jacket that he wore when he gave his confession.
Tonight, Otto's roommate on that trip who saw authorities take him away, speaking out for the first time.
I was there at the end in the airport. I sort of laughingly said to him, well, that's the last we'll ever see of you. Otto turned around and just chuckled at me. But of course, there was a huge irony in my words.
Loved ones wiping away tears, trying to make sense of his brutal treatment as he made his final journey.
The Iraqi government says the destruction of a historical landmark in Mosul by ISIS fighters marks the defeat of the terror group. The Grand Mosque of Al-Nouri has stood in the city for almost 8 centuries. There's been shock and anger after aerial footage shows it's been blown up.
Amateur recording captures a key moment in the collapse of the caliphate, the destruction of the Al-Nouri Mosque and its landmark leaning minaret. Now rubble remains in place of one of Iraq's great treasures, which had stood for 8 centuries. Iraq's Prime Minister says in destroying the mosque, so-called IS has officially admitted defeat here. The BBC's Arabic service managed to film the Al-Nouri Mosque just hours before it was levelled. These are probably the last images of the minaret still intact, with the black IS flag flying. It was inside at the pulpit that the IS leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, proclaimed himself leader of all Muslims in July 2014. Now he's in hiding. And nearby, his men are surrounded. Iraqi forces are hunting them down, street by street, house by house. But the troops are facing fierce resistance. The militants are going down fighting. As they make their last stand, civilians are fleeing the city, at least those who can find a way. But for many, like this man, it's a struggle to escape the battlefield. May God oppose the militants, he said. I spit on them.
Chukai Sports is next. Details when we come back.
Chukai Sports.
Welcome to Chukai Sports. To golf, Jordan Spieth put an emphatic end to his putting woes during an impressive Travelers Championship debut on Thursday, grabbing a one-shot lead after the first round in Cromwell, Connecticut. World number 3 Rory McIlroy, who missed the cut at last week's US Open after sitting out a month with a niggling rib problem, was among a group of 18 golfers 4 shots back in a share of 19th place.
Australian Jason Day, who also missed the cut last week in the latest misfire of what has so far been an underwhelming season, has plenty of work ahead if he plans to play the weekend after mixing a double bogey with 3 bogeys and 3 birdies. Defending champion Russell Knox finished 1 under 69. Spieth has already switched putters twice this season, but his current flat stick was working just fine on Thursday. The world number 6 snagging 5 birdies in his first 8 holes en route to a 7 under par 63 at TPC River Highlands. He closed his round in style with birdies on 3 of his final 6 holes, including at the par 4 18th, where his wedge from 136 yards stopped within 5 feet of the hole to take a slender lead over Johnson Wagner and Brett Stegmaier. Spieth's putting prowess spurred much of the success early in his career, but the 23-year-old has gone cold on the greens this year, most recently last week at the US Open, when he finished in a share of 35th place. But the Texan, seeking his second PGA Tour win of the season, looked more than comfortable on his first trek around the TPC River Highlands layout, where he had it all clicking and equaled his low round of the year. Northern Irishman McIlroy started on the back 9, where he collected 2 of his 4 birdies. He snared a 15-footer at the par 4 17th, but followed up with a bogey, his only miscue on the greens all day, when he missed a 3-footer for par. Among those level with McIlroy are Patrick Reed, Swade David Lingmerth, and Jim Furyk, whose final round 58 last year at the Travelers is the lowest round on the PGA Tour. Jeremy Moggy, National TV Sports.
To cricket, the Hebo Shield 2017 competition saw the Sharks coming out victorious in the women's 40-over division grand final. They defeated Piranhas with an easy 6-wicket win.
The Piranhas opened yesterday's final with captain Tanya Ruma and Helen Burka slotting in 69 runs in their opening partnership, but strong bowling action from the Sharks kept them at bay. They ended up recording 8 for 164 in their allotted 40 overs. The Sharks' reply came with a weak chase in the beginning of the second inning. Within the first 3 overs, they were at 2 for 43. Sharks captain Sibona Jimmy then steadied the chase with another 20 runs. It wasn't long before the 5th wicket partnership brought the runs to another 93 and guided the Sharks to an easy victory. For now, the ladies are on break and the Hebo Shield T20 competition will start on Tuesday, 4th of July. Dinero Striker, National, EMTV Sports.
Touch Football PNG is looking at bidding to host the next World Cup in PNG. The next World Cup will be held in 2023 after the 2019 World Cup in Malaysia. Touch Football President Daddy Toka Jr. says Team PNG must do well in the 2019 World Cup.
We had a successful championships, gave us the opportunity to select a squad. We had a very good AGM as well, to show our affiliates throughout the country that we have a plan, and that plan goes beyond 2019. We will make an official statement later on, but we will be putting in a bid to host the next World Cup after Malaysia. So those plans, we're going to look beyond 2019. We're going to look to 2020, 3. Hence we want to make sure that, if there's an aging generation of players, yes, they can be the next best referees and coaches. But we need to make sure we're grooming the next group that comes along, because it's very important that if we're going to host, we do well.
Trukai Sports continues after the break. Stay with us.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. Jonathan Thurston has been ruled out for the rest of the 2017 season. This includes the State of Origin Game 3 and the World Cup. He re-injured his shoulder during Wednesday night's State of Origin Game 2 after attempting to tackle Blues forward Tyson Frizzell.
Thurston, who has been struggling with the injury and missed Origin Game 1, was cleared to play Game 2 in Sydney earlier this week, but he re-injured his shoulder when he made a tackle on Frizzell.
Frizzell straight into him again, and he comes.
Thurston played right through the State of Origin match with a busted shoulder and led the Maroons to level the series.
Another Houdini!
He was told he requires surgery on his injured right shoulder. The injury blow also means Thurston's 37-game Queensland State of Origin career is over, with the Cowboys playmaker retiring from representative football at the end of the year. His club confirmed he won't be able to go on after receiving devastating reports from his scan. He will immediately undergo surgery and will be out for the next 6 months. Another big blow for Queensland coach Kevin Walters as he tries to look for a replacement for Darius Boyd, who will be out for 6 weeks with a thumb injury.
It's 16-6, the Blues leading at home with 40.
Thurston was looking forward to having a fairy tale ending to his representative career, with probably winning the State of Origin series and representing Australia in this year's World Cup. That would not be the case anymore, and he says he would not be reconsidering to play representative football next season. Elijah Lavette, National EMTV Sports.
Former England and Manchester United defender Rio Ferdinand on Thursday said the prospect of Cristiano Ronaldo returning to the Premier League side would be a fairy tale for fans. Ronaldo played for the Northern English Giants from 2003 to 2009 when he left for Spain. This year, he won the Champions League and domestic league titles with Real.
If Cristiano Ronaldo becomes available, then the best teams in the world will be queuing up to sign him, as simple as that. But I still feel that Real Madrid probably hold all the cards. It'll be down to them, and it's still going to be their final decision. He's under contract, so if they decide to let him go because he wants to leave or because of the situation he's in the courts or whatever it is, we'll see. But obviously, as a Man United fan, I'd love to see him go to Man United.
And that ends Trukai Sports. The weather details when we come back.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
The weather details are proudly brought to you by Dulux Weather Shield. Worth doing with Dulux.
Your weather forecast for tonight and tomorrow in the southern region only. Mostly fine and windy, although partly cloudy in Port Moresby. Mostly fine, although partly cloudy and windy in Daru. Cloudy periods in Kerma. Mostly fine, although partly cloudy in Alutau, and becoming cloudy with a shower or two in Popondetta. And that's the news this Friday, the 23rd of June 2017. From the entire news team, have a pleasant weekend. Good night.